Hi, I'm Virginia Spielman. I'm the Executive Director here at Star Institute for SPD in Colorado, Denver, at our headquarters. And we asked you what you wanted us to talk about today. And a number of people requested that we talk about sensory processing challenges in the classroom. How do we support these children? What can we do? And so hopefully tuning in, we've got therapists and parents and caregivers as well as educators. And so really keen to hear your questions as you hear my thoughts, and hopefully this can be an ongoing conversation. What we're going to talk about really are children in those younger years. We probably won't have time to touch much on high school years and further education. But we're thinking about the child who has disordered sensory processing and how can we help that child be a great learner. And so there are two things we really need to think about here. One of them is how can we help the child adapt to the classroom, be more successful in the classroom, access the curriculum with all of its nuances very, very completely, rather than just a part of what the learning task is. So how can we help the child be better in the classroom, be more successful in the classroom, but also, that's just point one. A really important second point is how can we make the classroom fit the child better? Many of you have seen the little cartoon of the elephant, the monkey, and the goldfish in the bowl, and the other animals, and the evaluator says, right, today's test is about climbing a tree. That's a very old cartoon because for years now we've been discussing the fact that not all children learn the same, not all children express themselves the same, and we have strengths in different areas, and thank goodness for that. It would be a very boring world if we were all super compliant, industrious little writers. We need the kids who are great at math, we need the kids who are great at science, we need the kids who can do all of the above, and drama, and so on. So how can the environment adapt to my child? How can it set my child up for success? How can my child be more successful in the world? How can we help their nervous system be more organized? How can we help them advocate for what they need to be successful? So it's this two-pronged approach that we're taking when we're thinking about disordered sensory processing in the classroom. What we're not doing is just trying to fit a child into a template. This is what works. How can we create a compliant student? We're looking for successful students, and so it takes this environment adaptation approach as well as, what can we do to support brain development, the nervous system responses, and so on. Now, it's important at this point to just pause and remind ourselves that the STAR frame of reference is a developmental approach. And it's a developmental approach that really focuses on three domains. It focuses on sensory processing and integration. It focuses on relationships, and it focuses on regulation. And so when we're looking at those three domains in the children that we support in a developmental way. So what we want to know is, where is this child strong? Where is this child functioning within typical range? Where is this child having challenges? What's disorganizing for this child? And so we need to look at those three areas when we ask those questions. So for example, we have a young child who is really fine at home, but goes to school and comes unraveled. We're going to look at regulation for that child. We're going to ask how sensory is contributing to their ability to be calm and alert and available in the classroom. Now, it could be that they have a visual over-responsivity, and therefore we're saying, right, this is one of those classrooms that has 20 things on the wall, it has hanging mobiles, there's a window there where they can see the other children walking past, there's light coming through the trees, and it's moving across his face all the time. How can we help that child by adapting the environment to set them up for success? How can we help that child be able to tolerate and process visual stimuli better? We're going to take that two-pronged approach. And so there is evidence to really starting to show us that the less is more approach to visual stimulation in the classroom is better for all children. So we might say, let's take down some of these mobiles, let's take down some of these pieces off the wall. We might move the child away from the window, away from the corridor where they can see the moving people, away from the door maybe. And so we'll adapt the environment where we can. We might give the child a screen to put up when they need to do quiet work, so that they don't have visual distractions. They can just be in a safe, quiet space. It's important to do all of these things in a way that makes them feel really normal and just like everybody learns differently. And so we normalize these conversations. We don't really want one child on a special chair with a special screen with headphones on. We want that to be available for all of the children. We want the teacher to model, you know what, my body is feeling like this noise is really hard for me today, or this lighting's not working for me today, so I'm going to do this so that I can learn better. We want to normalize these conversations. But let's say we adapt the environment for this child who's visually over-responsive. We then also would figure out, is there some supports or intervention that we can put in place that this child's going to be able to engage with joyfully, that's going to be able to change how their brain and body respond to visual stimuli so that they can stay calm and alert and available through a variety of visual sensations and experiences, so that they don't have to orient to everything in the room, but they can filter that the teacher's face is the most important thing in the classroom, and they can habituate to the stuff moving in their peripheral vision. I don't need to pay attention to that anymore. So that's sort of one example of how we might support a child, you know, in the classroom with adapting the environment and then finding the right therapy for that child that will help them with their sensory processing and integration. And as I mentioned, it's really important that we do this in a way that normalizes for them, that everybody needs to do this. This is what's going to help them be successful at university. And I often say it's really funny that at university you're much more allowed to do these things. You know, it's a lot more common for people to be able to chew gum, stand up if they need to, scribble notes so that they can stay focused. Whereas our younger children who are less able to be independent learners are required to sit in a very set and structured and scripted way, and they're not allowed to chew for the most part, you know, and they're not allowed to stand. We don't give them standing desk options, and yet they're the ones that need those supports the most. And then, you know, thinking about the relationship piece of the STAR frame of reference for our children who have disordered sensory processing and integration, that often interrupts relationships, emotional development. And so it's really important to with all of our children, help them feel that we are their partners in helping them be successful learners, rather than their punishers or you know, the primary disciplinary figure. When we're able to partner with our children and show that we're invested in their learning, all of the children in the classroom benefit. They're all more successful. But that's especially important for our children with disordered sensory processing, who are bombarded by the world or confused by their body's responses to sensation. And so really, as an educator, as a parent, as a therapist, coming alongside them to collaborate together to help them be successful, that relationship piece, it can be a big shift. It can also feel like a tiny shift, and sometimes that's more effortful. But then you become problem solvers together, and you start to equip that child, as I said earlier, to advocate for the things that they need, to ask for accommodations, you know, to say, I'm finding it difficult sitting still today. What we don't want is children fixated on, I have to sit at the desk, concentrate on sitting at the desk. It's like an app on your phone that drains the battery, and you have to shut that app down to get anything else done. The sitting app can be really, really challenging for some of our children. And so can we find a way to update that software, get them the therapy they need, but also maybe, you know, a different app, or we don't require the sitting app to be running so that they can be learning. Maybe they could stand at a desk. Maybe they could sit on a special chair and we could have a couple in the classroom, and so on. So just really thinking about the environment, and questioning some of the traditions that we have in education, like incredibly overstimulating visual environments for learning. Kind of asking what's going to help our children learn, providing seating options, building in movement options, children moving their bodies, moving heavy furniture can be really great, but it does need to fit that child's sensory abilities and preferences and profile. But also, you know, identifying what support does this child need? Do they need to go for occupational therapy? Do they need to have, you know, something that they do in the middle of the day to keep them organized for the afternoon, and so on. So how can we update the software? How can we help the children's bodies respond? How can we adapt the environment? And I'm going to leave it there for today because I feel like I've just thrown a lot of information at you, and of course there's a lot more that we could talk about, and we're happy to do so. We could do a part 2, a part 3, a part 4. So if you've got questions, pop them in the chat boxes below. And also, you know, just a reminder, it's Giving Tuesday, and we'd love you to join the movement. We want to be doing more of this. We're going to be translating what we do. We want to be reaching more people. We want to be part of this movement where we recognize the diversity of the human race and how we can support all our children and adolescents and adults to be great learners.